Hello, welcome back. I'm Greg Leach. This is Art of Cycling. I swear I'll start painting cycling eventually. Um, Actually, sadly, I'm not painting the Tore Down Under yet, or this year, because I've got to frame a show. And it's going to take a while. I have to deliver in February, end of February. So it's going to take a bit to build 15 frames. So anyway, enough about that. So back in here working on this piece. This piece doesn't get to go to the show. And that'll be a little obvious as to why a little bit later in this video. So I'm now working in the shadow area of the ribs. This is, so one of the paintings that you've seen is Portrait of an Artist as an Old Man. Well, this is Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. So I'm probably augmenting myself, but working on the shadow areas of the rib cage back when I was skinny and you could see my ribs. Of course, I was racing at the time, so that might have had something to do with it. But getting in this, so using these purple and alizarin crimson and a bit of white to get that transition to the shadow side, and then now sort of shifting into the white. Always check and see with these RF oil slicks, it's this paper wrapping that you have to leave there because otherwise you're trying to hold on to wet paint, basically. So, but conversely, as you work down through the oil stick, that paper starts dragging and messes with the stroke and the paint application. So now just dropping some of that same paler color that has, so the white has some of the other color on it. So I'm picking that up and moving it. And now I want to transition to warmer, so picking up my Radazu to finish out the rib cage here and around the navel. And I'm imagining I'm off grabbing orange and yellow and white. And of course a different white paint stick because I don't want to use the cool one in the warm colors because you end up with getting some mud. So see, now this is the Shiva paint stick, and because they're a little harder, skin is a little more prevalent. I could actually hold on to. Now you notice that hard stroke right there at the beginning? That was breaking that skin that was on the nib of the orange. So just lay it in. So now I'm transitioning from red to, which is the darkest of the warms, and then the orange, and now I'm over here. So picking up some of the white or yellow, dragging the yellow through the orange, getting that orange tone. Again, peeling back some of the paper, taking the white, and now dragging that warm tone back into the cool area. And paying attention to not, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. So like I said, I've been doing carpentry. My studio is full of sawdust right now. I always wonder if, the art historians are going to notice that some of the paints have sawdust in them, because there's a fine sawdust rolling around this studio, not while I'm working on this painting, but while I'm recording the voiceover for me working on it. So there can be a fine haze of sawdust in the air, which is A, making me sneeze, and B, perhaps layering into the paint. More about that later. So now just working through the abdomen. And I'm not sure about leaving this navel. just don't know. I don't have fingernails. Don't have nipples. And believe me, guys, my chest is not that unhairy. So now coming back and getting a little shadow up under the pectoral muscle, and as the ribs roll away and sort of duck in behind the arm on the far side. And now using that same purple, which is the deoxine purple from Shiva, dragging that across to get the shadow part of the forearm muscles. And all of that, the palm of the hand. Again, alizarin crimson, and then dragging all of that with the white. And some of that's hidden behind the thigh. I'm not too sure about that sharp angle there at the elbow. While I'm recording this, of course, I'm looking at the painting. And at this, as of yet, I've not come back and decided what I want to do about that. I'm thinking it should come back in here and just take the curve of the blue jean shorts, the cutoffs. And of course now the light striking the upper arm, or the upper side of the forearm, as well as thumb and fingers. And again, reaching back for a little bit of the white to drag and mix that, soften it. And then here, dragging it into that shadow color and being bold, letting that dirt messiness. I don't know if you noticed that little pick of the finger there, some of the debris of the paint stick as I was painting fell onto an area I didn't want it. And see, like I said, no fingernails. So you can see how easy just that extra stroke of white delineated the middle section of the finger. So you can really see it curving around the beer can or soda can. And I've been debating about these stones that we're all sitting on in the middle of the river, on what color they should be. In reality, they're kind of a sandstone. Well, it's probably not sandstone, it's probably granite. But anyway, so they have sort of a grayish brown tint color to them. And I'm probably going to end up somewhere in there because I need to distinguish them from the water. Of course, hidden behind my fingertips is the label on the can. This is, of course, this is all based, and I think I've talked about it already in a previous video. This is a remembered event that kind of stuck in our brain. And the event occurred in the late 70s. So I don't have any recollection of what we were drinking. But it more likely than not was beer. Although Bridget didn't drink then either. And this was the day after a party, so there's a good chance we weren't drinking either. But nevertheless, I decided I wanted to use this green tone. I think the painting was definitely in need of some green accents. And so this is conceptually a Heineken can, or maybe a Rolling Rock can, who knows. But a green can of beer with a big yellow label on it, that's what it is. Of course, I do sort of just point out that, it's paint. It's a bunch of strokes of oil stick in the shape of something.
Okay.
So you can see that now I'm working on this. I want to make sure I'm not picking up the wrong color and dragging it. I want to get a nice mixture of color. So that's what that rag in my hand is for. And I just, wipe it off. And of course, then you kind of have to look because there's a lot of paint on that rag too. So you could end up dragging the wrong color again. So I thought I'd move the camera so you can see the next part of the figure. And you can see Wolfgang there, and this is why this painting is not going to be going to the Hoyt Art Center, because as an arts and education center, there are a lot of children who come through, and just in, what is that phrase, an abundance of caution, we figure we will not take male nudity. But also, just like the beer can, it's really just a couple strokes of paint. Nothing to fear here. And the story of this painting and his less than attractive, blatant nudity is a big part of the story. And it's such a reaction. This painting is a reaction that utilizes compositional elements from the Déjeuner sur la Grasse. And of course, in the distance in that painting, both one of the woman in the foreground is fully naked while the men are fully clothed. But the woman in the background is standing in the water bathing, also nude. So Wolfgang's appearance mimics that secondary female figure in the Monet's Déjeuner sur la Grasse. So I was just wondering if perhaps we got a profile of me, modern me, a little bit there, and 20-something me. 20-something me rarely wore glasses. Nearly 70 me wears them 24/7, almost. So now I'm going to come back in here and work into this band of water, which will help define, well, all of this area, and sort of resolve the shoulder. And this is right now, so I think this is phthalo blue. I started with phthalo green, so sort of laying in both colors to get that aqua tint. In some cases, I've also used the dioxine purple. Excuse me, but I think not in that quadrant of rushing water. So, and of course, I find it easiest to sort of lay in what's going to color the white. So now I'm grabbing the white. Of course, this is a brand new stick because that other one was getting to where I couldn't handle it. And see, one of the problems that happens here is I've got to be very careful because that stroke goes along the arm. I'm trying to make sure I don't get a either light or dark outline. That I really want to look. I want these strokes to go behind the shoulder. And of course, behind the face. And that's talk about background, quote unquote, negative space background. One of the things with my paintings is, and it should be with all paintings, that that which isn't the object is every bit as important as that is the object. You can't, it all needs to have the same level of attention and be equally important, equally powerful, equally considered, as much stroke and involvement and variation of color, all of that, so that in terms of application of paint, application of concentration of detail or effort or whatever, I'm not finding the right word I want to use here, but that this area between Wolfgang's leg and my shoulder in the can is every bit as important as the shoulder, the can, and Wolfgang. So the strokes, and then the water rushing over the rocks and in and around us help bring movement, and so that, and that kind of echoes the movement of the arm. And of course, that being said, there's a very clean green backwards L right over the can and below the Wolfgang's knee. And that's painting in a nutshell, is both establishing and breaking rules. That's, and I was actually having this conversation the other night about learning while you paint, and that the good paintings for an artist are the paintings that teach you something. And as this person was saying, this is someone who struggles with knowing when a painting is done. And that's a valid struggle. It's a hard thing. But by the time you get to the end of the painting, you've learned things that you didn't know at the beginning of the painting. So then now you don't like it, and you want to, quote unquote, fix those things that you now know that you didn't know earlier. And it becomes this vicious ongoing cycle. I sort of do it the other way. It's like, okay, and like right now I'm working a lot and painting after painting after painting. And so there's a building process. And so I'm taking those ideas and utilizing them in the next painting rather than keep working on one, going back. So I'm going to switch, I think, to some time lapse here. Yep. But just a quick note to let you know that, again, Art of Cycling, I hope you like what you're seeing, and you will give a thumbs up and a follow. And of course, you can find all of my artwork over on my website, greigleach.com. One of my ways of solving the color of the rock problem was to put in this striped towel. And then this foliage up in the corner, and again, if you see the déjeuner sur la glace, the foliage is quite close. So I thought that would be a nice, also bringing more green into the painting. So if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them in the next video. This painting should be done soon, although like I said, I've transitioned to frame building, and I'll show you some of that shortly as well, although if you dig back in the archives, you will find some frame building from the last show.